Hello. For my presentation, I chose Lloyd Wright. I actually looked at the suggested list of names and I kind of just chose the one that stood out to me the most, and that's how I ended up on this presentation. And funny story is later on you will see one of his most famous works, and I didn't even know it was his until doing this research, and I have been in love with this one house in particular forever and didn't even know it was his. So, the genius architect, Lloyd Wright, the self-proclaimed genius, was born June 8th, 1867, which really surprised me. Considering how advanced his work comes off as. He studied at Wisconsin University and he designed his home at age 22. He had 6 children and created a multitude of buildings throughout his career. Something in his early life that definitely stood out to me was that his mother got him these Froebel blocks. Excuse my pronunciation of that. From what I found, they seem to come in different sets, and each set is a different set of shapes. So from what I seen, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and each one had a different shape. As you can see, there are square blocks and then the long rectangular shape, sort of like Jenga blocks, and there was different ones like triangles. I couldn't find if he had multiple sets or just one. But from his young age, he was playing around with different shapes and building things from these blocks, which I do believe has a very big impact on his designs. In Wright's early work, he became an apprentice under Louis Sullivan, who was coined the father of the skyscrapers. While under the contract, he started having clients of his own on the side, which was a breach of the contract, and was making them these so-called bootleg homes. He also convinced Sullivan to pay for his plot of land and for his home to be built, which is just a little fun fact that I found out. The style that Wright was most famous for was the prairie style, which is said to be very American, and the look was consistent with horizontal lines. Another feature that was within these style homes was the woodwork and the light fixtures, which we will see in some upcoming examples. But as you can see on this house here, it's very much a lot of horizontal lines within the bricks, and then the roof is a very just long, cohesive horizontal line. Alright, and then the Taliesin was the most significant home he built. He lived there with his wife and children. The tragedy of this home is that their chef actually murdered his wife and children there and set the house on fire. I personally don't even know how you could move past this, but he did, and he rebuilt this home and he made it better than it was before. This is Wright's Unity Temple, which is a very non-traditional look for a worship building. There is no clear entrance, there is no steeple, but it does sort of give off a holy elite vibe to me, which I believe still gives it that classy look of a church building. And then the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo, Japan was his largest commission in his career. This build is what kept his mind off of the murder of his wife and children, I believe. I think it's humongous and he had to travel to do it, so I feel like having such a large commission kept him busy. This hotel survived a very major earthquake, and it was said that the reason it survived it was due to his design, and they were very thankful for that. The Mayan Revival style house in Hollywood, named the Hollyhock House, it is compared to the Mayan architecture, as you can see here, which I also believe his designs from the prairie style go with the Mayan look. Very horizontal lines. It has a courtyard, an amphitheater, and a fireplace with a moat. The name and the design features of the house are because of the client's favorite flower, the hollyhock. It is repeated within the designs of the house, shown in the outside design, plus the addition of an actual flower planted around the front, as you can see right here. As well as the dining chairs, the back part of the dining chairs is patterned to represent the flower shape. So here's a few examples of the design that he did for the flower inside the house buildings. So on the top picture, you can see the structures along the top sort of represent the flowers that are underneath them. And then on the bottom picture in the amphitheater, you can see they also go along the top ledge there. And then the middle picture is a picture of the dining chairs, and along like the back part of the chairs was this so-called spine structure that represented this shape as well. And then here is the fireplace with the moat around it. The next set of houses he built were the textile block houses, the Millard, the Storer, the Freeman, and the Enos. Each of these houses were built from a specific pattern block. It was said to be cheaper, and I would like to add, it's sort of a callback to those early childhood blocks, the Froebel blocks. I can see the correlation there in the block design. It seems to me he took the block design and just put them on a much larger scale and added his twist to it with the different patterns. On the left, you can see the actual blocks from the house itself. And then in the blue pattern, you can see those were the different block shapes for each house. So the entire house was made of only those blocks. And here we are at Falling Water. This is the house I mentioned in the beginning that I have always loved seeing images of. I've always thought it was so cool to have a house sitting on a waterfall, but I didn't even know who the creator of it was until this project. So Falling Water was his most famous design. This is ironically the design I knew and loved before. This design was when he was much older, and some had said that he was out of touch, and he definitely shut down those critics with this. It was built on the waterfall in Pittsburgh, and there seems to be a connection as well. If you look at the fireplace on the inside, they left the rock, so it sort of looked like a waterfall is coming out of the fireplace, and the water being the rock formation. His homes were clearly made for wealthy people, so he decided at one point in his career to start making homes that were still beautiful but budget friendly, so everyone could afford his cool homes. Note the still long shapes and horizontal looks and the attention to the details of the woodwork. It was said that he made 60 of these affordable homes. I didn't find any prices, but I know a lot of them, it's sort of like an Airbnb almost. You can go visit them and see them and I guess rent or stay in them. And later in life, he built the Taliesin West, which was in Arizona, and integrated the landscape into this design, which is sort of a callback to Falling Water. It made me wonder if he actually scouted out the landscape before designing the house to see how he could incorporate it or not. And as you can see, it still has that horizontal, long, flat look to it. Here's another example. This was in the back. As you can see, the rocks, it looks like they were put into concrete and then just cut into the shape of the house. And then he left one of the big rocks as a centerpiece of the staircase. And then here are some honorable mentions. We have the lily pad office, ? This was not the name of it, but this is what my interpretation of it was. It made me feel like the workers were underneath a bunch of lily pads while they were at work. And And then you can see like the lights coming down, so it reminded me of like the sun coming through like the lily pads in the water. So I think that's a really creative design and such a different office look. The Guggenheim. The Guggenheim Museum featured a lot of art. When the art of the building itself was something that a lot of people admired. The Guggenheim has the visitors flowing through it, and the design was similar to the homes, and a lot of them you could see a lot of the staircasings would be flowing, and that's how it is in the Guggenheim Museum. And then here are just a few more honorable mentions that I found interesting. This was a gas station and a windmill. Not typically his thing, but I thought they were pretty awesome designs. He was able to put his twist on because I would say the gas station has a very like flat look to it, and then has those shapes and like the overhang, which is something he was also known for. And then the windmill, I thought that was very interesting. Kind of looks like stacked stone. So I left that in there. And then here are a couple more examples of the housing. The house on the left shows more so of the horizontal and then that overhang of the roof. And then on the bottom right, that's sort of more of the flow staircase I was talking about with the Guggenheim. That's another staple that he sort of included on most of his houses. And then the ones never built. I found an article that discussed all of the designs that he had that were never actually built, and they actually, I assume, made it with AI, or somebody used the design and actually created it to see like what they would look like today. Considering he died in 1959, these designs were very ahead of their time, and there's no telling what the designs would look like today if he was still alive, which is something that has me like thinking a lot, because 1959 was a very long time ago, and these designs look like they're from today or even more so in the future. So if he was still alive, I wonder how advanced his designs would be today. And then here is a slide with a video on it.